for the past 10 weeks, when I've been in Costa Rica, I was thinking that Costa Rica was a democratic republic, and that may or may not be true. So we're going to look at that issue, and we have somewhat of an expert with us here today. Back on the channel, we have Miguel. Welcome back to the channel, to Miguel and to all of our viewers. This is Sharma Roussel in Grecia with information about moving to Costa Rica and retiring in Costa Rica. So Miguel, go ahead and introduce yourself again to our viewers.
So hi everybody, my name is Jose Miguel Madrigal. I am a law school student writing my thesis. Eventually I'll be graduating and practicing law here in Costa Rica. As you may know, I was born in the United States almost 30 years ago, and I've been living here since I was 6 years old. I moved here in 2001, and I've been active in politics here and whatever, so yeah.
Thanks. So tell us, what form of government does Costa Rica have?
So you are right in your assessment. Costa Rica is actually a democratic republic. It's actually, to go into specifics, it's called a unitary presidential republic. So what does that actually mean? So unitary means it's not a federal system. Unlike the United States, the U.S. has 50 states that are semi-autonomous. You get to decide things on taxes and education and whatever. Costa Rica is not. Costa Rica is a unitary state. So there is no such thing as state government here. There's only a national government, period. So we don't have governors, we don't have a state legislature. What we have are 3 branches of government divided into the executive, the judicial, and the legislative, just like in the United States. But we do have something called a 4th branch of government called Tribunal Supremo Elecciones that oversees elections. Also, a fun fact about Costa Rica: we don't have a standing army. We don't have any sort of armed forces here. Those were abolished in 1948, 1949. And we haven't been living with those ever since. Also, a fun fact about Costa Rica is that we have to spend at least 8% of our GDP on education. So we do have a minimum mandate for education, and also, unlike the United States, we have a guarantee that healthcare is a human right, and everybody has access to it. So that's a major difference between the U.S. and Costa Rica.
So tell us about the legislative branch a little bit, and especially the differences between the United States and Costa Rica when it comes to the legislative branch.
So let's start with the legislative branch. In the United States, the legislative branch is divided into 2 houses. The House of Representatives, which is based on population. Every state gets a different number of representatives based on its population, and then there's a Senate, which is 2 senators per state. That's not the way how it works in Costa Rica. We only have one chamber, which is called Asamblea Legislativa, and it's very similar to the House of Representatives, where each province gets a different number of diputados based on population. So it's more similar to the House than it is to the Senate. However, we have some other differences. In Costa Rica, every diputado serves a 4-year term. In the House of Representatives, they serve 2-year terms, and in the Senate they serve 6. So that's a major difference right there. Also, there's a minimum age requirement in the United States. To be a senator, you have to be at least 30 years old. To be a representative, you have to be 25. In Costa Rica, to become a diputado, you have to be 21. That's very young. And also, in the United States, there are no term limits for people in Congress. In Costa Rica, there are. You can only serve 1 consecutive term, and you have to at least wait 4 years to run again for office. So we don't have people running for re-election in consecutive terms. We have a total of 57 diputados, and the U.S. has 100 senators and 435 representatives. Do you have any other questions regarding the legislature?
Well, did you talk about the Electoral College? Is there an Electoral College in Costa Rica?
Well, regarding that goes into the executive branch and how we elect the president. But in Costa Rica, there is no Electoral College. So the president of Costa Rica is elected by the popular vote. There is no Electoral College. And yeah, that's how we elect our president, by the popular vote.
So how many terms can a president serve? Back to the executive branch.
So in the U.S., as you may or may not know, we have something called the 22nd Amendment, which establishes that the president can only serve 2 terms. That's it. In Costa Rica, there are no term limits. However, there is a catch. If you want to run for re-election in Costa Rica as president, you have to at least wait 8 years to run again. So we don't have consecutive terms for presidents. Since 1948, we've only had 2 presidents that have won more than 1 term. President Figueres, that if you look at your 10,000 colones bill, he's on the bill. He's the guy on our printed money. And then there's President Oscar Arias, who was elected in 1986 and then in 2006. So he was president twice.
So we've talked about the legislative and the executive branches. Is there anything you want to add before we move on to the judicial branch?
Yes. So unlike the United States, where you only have 1 vice president, in Costa Rica we elect 2 vice presidents, just in case something happens. I think, well, there's never actually been a president assassinated or impeached or resigned in Costa Rica. All of our presidents since 1948 have completed their terms without anything happening. Also, in Costa Rica, there is no such thing as impeachment. I know that in the United States, there's been several presidents have been impeached. That doesn't happen in Costa Rica because there is no mechanism to remove the president once he or she is elected. Presidents here, ever since 1948, all of them have completed their 4-year term.
So, can you name the presidents in the United States who have been impeached?
Yes,
From memory.
yes, I actually can.
Okay.
So, after Abraham Lincoln was assassinated, his vice president Andrew Johnson ascended to the presidency, and during his term, he was impeached. In 1974, if I'm not mistaken, Richard Nixon was undergoing the impeachment procedure. He resigned from office before he actually got impeached. I don't know if you remember that. I don't. And then in the 1990s, Bill Clinton was impeached, and then unfortunately, our current president was impeached twice in his first term, in 2019 and 2021. So we have had 5 impeachment proceedings, and none of them have been actually removed from office because, as you remember, to be impeached, you need 2/3 of the U.S. Senate to convict you, and that has never happened yet.
Okay, so let's move on to the judicial branch. Tell us a little bit about the judicial branch and especially the differences between Costa Rica and the United States.
So the judicial branch is a very, very complicated issue. I am a law school student. I could talk about this for hours, but I will just focus on the Costa Rican Supreme Court. So unlike the United States, where you only have 9 justices, we have 22 justices in Costa Rica. I know that it's a high number that might alarm you, but let me explain. We have 22 justices because in Costa Rica, depending on the type of lawsuit that is being litigated, that goes to a certain chamber of our Supreme Court. So we have 4 chambers in our Supreme Court. Sala Primera, which covers commercial cases, civil lawsuits, and agrarian disputes. Sala Segunda, which is basically family law and labor law. Sala Tercera, which covers criminal law, and Sala Constitucional, that covers only constitutional matters. And from Sala Primera to Tercera, there's only 5 justices in one of those salas, and then in Sala Cuarta, Sala Constitucional, we have 7 justices. If you add all those up, that adds up to 22. So that's why it's a high number, but they will never, rule on a case together. They always do it separately because of the type of a lawsuit that's being litigated. Unlike the United States, where the president is who appoints the Supreme Court justice, here it's Asamblea Legislativa who appoints the justices to our Supreme Court. So in the United States, they serve for life. Here, they serve for 8-year terms. However, to be removed from the Supreme Court here, you need a 2/3 majority of Asamblea Legislativa to vote against you. That has only happened twice since 19 1949. So it's very difficult not to get reelected as a Supreme Court justice. Also, I just wanted to mention that in the United States, there is no age requirement to be a Supreme Court justice. There is one here. You have to be at least 35 years old to be a Supreme Court justice here. Yeah.
All right, those are some excellent points and some differences that people should be aware of. Now, there is a fourth branch of government in Costa Rica, so tell us what that fourth branch is.
So Costa Rica has a fourth branch of government called Tribunal Supremo de Elecciones. They are in charge of overseeing the entire election process. They are in charge of determining if a candidate is eligible to run for office. They certify the winner of an election. They count the votes. They oversee the actual process of voting itself. So election day, you'll see a lot of Tribunal Supremo de Elecciones workers everywhere. They actually also are in charge of all the civil registration here. So if you get married, if you get a divorce, that goes through Tribunal Supremo de Elecciones. If you have a child, their birth certificate is licensed by Tribunal Supremo de Elecciones. If you die, there's also death certificate also issued by Tribunal Supremo de Elecciones. So they are a really, really powerful branch of government in Costa Rica. And there's actually a reason behind that. So back in the 1940s, Costa Rica had a bloody civil war, right? And the reason behind this war was a disputed election. Back in the day, it was Congress who certified the election winner. And in 1948, Congress did not certify the winner of that election. So a group of people decided to actively overthrow the government, and they did. And they established a new constitution where they firmly established that no politician should be in charge of certifying the results. It should be a neutral, independent body that administers the entire thing. So they created Tribunal Supremo de Elecciones in the 1940s to make sure that our democracy is strong, solid, and doesn't have any sort of political interference.
That's very interesting. So now that we've covered all of the branches of the government, I think I see a strong emphasis on an independent electoral system. So why is that? I mean, you mentioned the Civil War. Are there other reasons that there's an emphasis on a strong oversight of the electoral process?
Yeah, because if you allow politicians to certify an election, they are guided by their own interests. And in Costa Rica, we want the will of the people to be fully respected during the entire process. So we remove the power of certifying the results from an elected body such as la Asamblea Legislativa to a neutral organization that will ensure that everybody is playing by the same set of rules and everybody gets a fair chance of winning the election. So I don't know if you remember what happened on January 20th, 2021. It was Congress who was supposed to certify the election.
This is in the United States.
In the United States, yes, correct. And then you had an angry mob going to Congress and asking Mike Pence to not certify their results. So that would never happen here because it's an independent authority, and only they have the chance, the opportunity to certify the elections, and it's made by somebody who's neutral, has no skin in the game. That's really important. So this is the reason why we decided to separate and have a fully fourth branch of government to ensure that the elections are fair and free for everybody.
So before we go on to summarizing everything that we've covered here, I wondered if you would tell us just a little bit about how young people become eligible to vote.
Oh, yes, I forgot to mention this. So if you can hold
Sure,
this,
yeah.
I'll show you my handy dandy cédula de identidad. So
It's a card.
It's a card. So it's an ID. So unlike the U.S., in Costa Rica, Tribunal Supremo de Elecciones gives you a national ID, which is totally free. You can go to downtown San Jose and get your cédula. And once you turn 18, you are automatically registered for all the elections until the day you die. right? So there is no voter registration. You are automatically registered the day you turn 18. So unlike the U.S. where you have to register every certain amount of years or months or whatever, here you are automatically registered. And La Cédula is very efficient, and I like the way how you don't have to go. It's not a hassle to register in Costa Rica. I know that in the United States you have to go to your board of elections, register, whatever. It's not the case here. You only register once in your life when you get your cédula for the first time. So it's very, very useful.
Okay, thanks for sharing that. I'm going to see if I can summarize everything we've covered here. I may not remember everything, but okay, so there's no Electoral College in Costa Rica. A president cannot run for consecutive terms. She or he must wait 8 years before running for a second term. There are 4 branches of government: legislative, executive, judicial, and the 4th branch, which is
Tribunal Supremo Elecciones.
okay, it oversees independent elections, and it is called the Tribunal. That's the 4th branch of the government. So it's very independent. So in Costa Rica, there are no armed forces because of a new constitution that was passed back in the 1940s. So that money that the government would otherwise spend on military equipment and soldiers, it instead spends that money on its citizens, on their education and their health care, and also on preserving cultural heritage, those kinds of things. So those are some of the things that I remember from our conversation here. Did I leave anything out that's really important?
Well, I also wanted to say that, another just very quick point. We have did I mention we have 2 vice presidents here?
Yes.
Okay, so not
yes.
one, okay.
And you've had women vice presidents
We've had,
as well as a woman president.
Yes. So right now, and our current president is Rodrigo Chavez. He has 2 vice presidents, Stefan Brunner and Mari Munive, which is a woman. So we've had several women vice presidents ever since the 1990s. So we've had a history of women vice presidents here.
Okay. There's one other thing that before we close out, I wondered if you would talk about, I know I'm putting you on the spot here and this is recent news, but there is an index of democracies that lists the strength of democracies around the world. So can you say a little bit about that?
Yes, so there's a journal called The Economist, and they do an annual survey of how strong a democracies are around the world. They look at several indexes like civil liberties, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, how easy it is to vote, and they summarize all that, and they spit out a number, and they rank all the countries in the world. As of right now, according to the 2024 The Economist Democracy Index, Norway is number 1 with a 9.8 out of 10. But if you go to the American continent, Costa Rica is ranked second. The only 2 countries that are more democratic than Costa Rica are Canada and Uruguay. So Costa Rica ranks second. Unfortunately, the United States is ranked lower than Costa Rica. So that is truly wild. But as I mentioned, I mean, we in Costa Rica we truly cherish the independence and the independence of our electoral system and making sure it's neutral and independent. So this comes as no surprise. And if you look at the index also, Costa Rica got a higher score than Italy and France. So we truly live in a beautiful land of democracy here in Costa Rica.
And that's something that people can find online, that index of democracies. Of course, the United States has been a democracy for much, much longer, and Costa Rica is a newer democracy and a developing democracy, and a very strong democracy from what I can see. So it's something that its citizens want to support and protect. Are there any closing remarks that you have, Miguel?
Well, I'll just close by saying this. If you're planning to visit Costa Rica, make sure you visit our sunny beaches, our beautiful mountains and volcanoes, our lush vegetation, and of course, always enjoy our democratic country. So thank you all very much. Any last words?
Pura vida.
Pura vida.
Adios.
Thank you, everybody.
Adios.
See ya.
Bye.